Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. You know, folks, with all of this information coming out by attorney John Ray, all these allegations and this about Rex Heuermann's daughter possibly being involved, allegations with basically no evidence, and that's not going to be my focus today. I'm not here to beat up on John Ray. What I am here to do is to introduce all of the attorneys that are involved in the Gilgo Beach case. And I'll put the thumbnail up on the screen. And the thumbnail, of course, says the attorneys of Gilgo Beach. Who do they represent? Well, obviously, District Attorney Ray Tierney represents the people, state of New York, in the prosecution against defendant Rex Heuermann. And he also represents, of course, the people of Suffolk County, the people of Long Island, and all of the victims and the victims' family in his attempt to get justice for the victims of Rex Heuermann, and who, of course, we all know, as per our system, is innocent until proven guilty. They say every time they have a press conference, these are just allegations with lots of evidence. And on this thumbnail to District Attorney Ray Tierney to the left is Heuermann defense attorney Michael Brown, who, guys, apparently is an outstanding attorney, was a former Suffolk County District Attorney, has his work cut out for him. And just below Attorney Michael Brown is Robert Macedonio, the wife of Rex Heuermann, Asa Ellerup, her attorney. And we'll go into a little bit later why Asa Ellerup needs an attorney. And right to the right of Robert Macedonio on this thumbnail is John Ray, who is the attorney for Shannan Gilbert's family and has been around this case probably the longest of anyone on this thumbnail. And to the right of John Ray is Vess Mitev, attorney for Victoria Heuermann, the daughter, of course, and also the attorney for Christopher, the son of Rex and Asa. And to Vess Mitev's right is pretty famous attorney Gloria Allred, and she is the attorney for the family of Jessica Taylor. Now, you may ask, well, why do all these families need attorneys? And we'll get into that more, as that's what this show is going to be about. And I have with me, of course, an outstanding co-host, and I'll introduce him in a minute. But folks, before I do, hold on to your hats, hold on to your seats, hold on to your wig, your toupee, your family, your friends, because you're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone. You're about to enter the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch, Michael Ryder.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Joining me today is my co-host. He's retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, attorney. Welcome to the show, crowd favorite, Professor Michael Geary. Welcome to the show,
Bill.
Michael.
How are you? Good evening. Good to see you again. Welcome, everyone.
Seems like we never left, Mike. We were just on the air twice yesterday, so we're working hard. We're working hard, Mike, I came up with this idea, and as you know, I called you and said, what do you think of doing a show about the attorneys of Gilgo Beach? And of course, you said, something, that's a great idea, because most people don't know that how many people involved in this case have attorneys, right?
Right.
And we see them on TV, and we wonder, well, what are they doing? What is their job? And why do family members need attorneys. And why is John Ray, for example, representing the families of one of the, well, and Shannan Gilbert is not considered a victim. Shannan Gilbert's case is not listed as a homicide. Why is Vess Mitev representing Victoria Heuermann and Christopher Heuermann? And Gloria Allred, why is she representing the family of Jessica Taylor and Asa Ellerup's attorney, Robert Macedonio? So we'll go over all those things, but let's first start with District Attorney Ray Tierney. Mike, you have the floor. Let's tell us about a little something about District Attorney Ray Tierney.
All right, Ray Tierney's is a veteran prosecutor. He's 57 years old, and he graduated from St. John's University Law School in Queens back in 1992. So that's 32 years ago. He's been a state and federal prosecutor for 29 years. He started out in Suffolk County back in 1992 after he graduated law school. He did that for about 7 years. Then he worked in a local law firm in Suffolk County. He went back to the DA's office from 2002 to 2008. And then he went over and started working with the feds in the District Court for the Eastern District of New York, which covers Brooklyn, Queens, and Long Island, doing criminal cases there. And that's how he met Police Chief Harrison. That's how they became acquainted with each other, investigating cases for the Eastern District and for Brooklyn.
You know, Mike,
Mike,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but one of the most important things about Ray Tierney regarding Gilgo Beach investigation is that he and Rodney Harrison got together in January 2022, put their heads together and established the Gilgo Beach Task Force. Since that date, things started to happen. They shook the tree and coconuts fell out of that tree, and coconuts of evidence, coconuts of the biggest coconut, Rex Heuermann. I'm just using this metaphorically, but their wisdom and their experience put their heads together in New York City style, because Ray Tierney is a former Brooklyn district attorney. Mm-hmm. That's where he cut his teeth. And Rodney Harrison, of course, went up through the ranks of the NYPD, ended up as the chief of the department. Two guys put together a task force. 2 months later, they had the Gilgo Beach serial killer, alleged serial killer, identified as Rex Heuermann.
Oh yeah, Ray Tierney is a no-nonsense, tough-talking, very serious attorney. And as you just mentioned, as the Suffolk County DA back in 2022, when he put that task force, he got elected, and he put the task force together within like a month. They had the task force up and running with Chief Harrison. They're serious. They got this thing. They mainlined this. This became priority one. And like you say, within like a month, they had a prime suspect, and everything has flown from that. He's a Long Island boy, born and bred with his family, living there his whole life. So he's an excellent person. He is not somebody who's just like going to be administrator for other attorneys below him. He's taken the bull by the horns, and he loves the courtroom. He loves the trial. He loves putting together complex investigations. This is what he has done in Suffolk County. This is what he's done in Brooklyn as a state DA, Brooklyn DA, and also as a DA in the Eastern District, a federal district attorney in the Eastern District of New York. He is absolutely serious. He's excellent. He's well respected by the people around him. He is organized, and he's no nonsense. He is absolutely no nonsense. You could see he's very careful, but he's all business. He's not out there with press conferences for just FaceTime. He's there to give you information and move on. And so he's probably the best person out there to run this case. And so I think the people in the state of New York and Suffolk County are really, really fortunate to have him as the head DA on this case, without a doubt.
Something, Mad About Maya from the chat. It's infuriating to know that this case could have been solved in just 1 month after all these years. Shame on Burke. Well, something, it was a conglomeration of many things. It wasn't just that they had all the right people in place, as yes, they did, but they also had 10 or 11 years of evidence collected and of, work on this case, not all of it positive, but much of it positive. And because they've had such competence and they put together this task force of many, many people under, you guys keep referring to Chief James Burke. Yeah, the case was a mess under him. He had one guy assigned to the case and not even full time. I want to play a little bit of Ray Tierney's most recent press conference. This is when this 37-page bail application came out, which they actually listed as almost a how-to not get caught in the eyes of a serial killer.
The indictment has just been filed. This is a case, court proceeding, and each and every one of these allegations previously charged murders of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, which occurred in 1997, 1999, June of 2010, and September of 2010, respectively. So my intention now here today is to discuss those charges, discuss the contents of the bail letter, and then turn it all over to you all for questions. We have Deputy Chief Stan Grodsky. We have Stan Grodsky.
I'm going to just stop because he spends about 10 minutes introducing everybody, and I don't really want to hear all of that. So we'll go to it, cut into this.
His motivations, meticulous planning, and clear intent is obvious. His intent was nothing short but to murder these victims. And we allege that the methodology, that the exact method by which these murders were committed in excruciating detail in that document is in some cases identical to the methodology used to murder the 6 victims in this case. Now, I don't want to speak further on the document. I believe the document speaks for itself. So if anybody has any questions about the document, I'd be more than willing to answer them. But before turning it over for questioning, I want to reiterate, right from the very beginning of this case, from the onset of the case, the first indictment, we said that the case was not over. We said we were going to continue to investigate the case of the Gilgo 4 and find more evidence. We've done that. We've said that we were going to expand the investigation both on Gilgo and off and to investigate new cases. We've done that. And that's resulted in the 2 new charges that you see here today.
Okay, so that is Ray Tierney. As you can all see, a no-nonsense prosecutor, confident. Someone mentioned in the beginning of this case, he couldn't stay off the air. We said on this show that he never met a camera that he didn't like. But since then, he has chosen to stay off the air a bit and perhaps to keep a little more secretive, to keep this case, in the public eye so that they have confidence that this investigation is ongoing. They haven't stopped. They will not quit until the last victim is found, until Rex Heuermann goes to trial and they get a conviction, and every last victim's family is accounted for, and that we get justice for all the victims' families. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, he's excellent. He worked well with Rodney Harrison, Chief Harrison. They were an excellent team. They were like the dynamic duo. What they did very quickly with good organization, with good detectives, interagency cooperation, which is so important between on the federal level and also with Nassau County, with New York State. Oh, absolutely. This was an incredible piece of investigation. And people don't realize, because they don't hear a lot what was going on, but I am sure those detectives were working 12-hour days on and off. They were going over every single, because remember, they had to go back to the very beginning of when the Gilgo 4 were first found in 2010, 2011. And they had to go through all of that paperwork, whatever they could find, all over again. And so they had to read everything. And you've read, and Phil has read, and even I've read, massive numbers of DD5s, the complaint follow-ups, and all the informationals. And, it's like, you're reading War and Peace, going through it, and you got to go through all this, and you got to get familiar. You got to read it twice. And so he did a great job. So we're indebted to him. And I don't think for a split second that there's any real let up, because nobody wants to let up on this guy. Everybody wants to get another indictment on this guy. Absolutely, for all the other girls who've been who are been missing and we haven't found them, and for all the bodies that have partially identified, and there's no justice for them yet. But this is a good organization he put together, so kudos to him.
Absolutely. I'm going to go. This is the bail application, and what I have up on the screen is page 23, which they refer to as the HK planning document. Begins with a 4-category section with the underlying headings of problems, supplies, DS, which stands for dump site, and TRG, which stands for target. You can see this document if you can read it, if it's big enough up on the screen. I don't know if I can make it any bigger. On the first heading, it says problems, and this is him trying to do things that will allow him not to get caught by the police. Problems: DNA, tire marks, blood stains, fingerprints, MO, plastic bag, cat litter, witnesses, trace source of supplies. That, when you think about that, he's worrying about buying certain supplies at a certain store that they could actually trace where he got the supplies based on identifying the item that's left on the screen. So he on the crime scene. So he's thinking ahead of all these things: foot, shoe prints, photos, misleaders, police stop. What if he's out doing his dirty deed and he gets pulled over in a random car stop?
Right.
Fingerprints in gloves. He's wearing gloves committing these crimes, and he's worried about leaving his fingerprints inside the gloves. This is all from those FBI books on how he's using countermeasures on how to thwart the police to get away with it. So this is what they refer to. There's much, much more. Supplies, booties, lye, acid, police scanner, rope, cord, saw, cutting tools, hairnets, photo, film. I mean, this is just horrific stuff. But this is some of the evidence that they recovered, and this was recovered on a Word document. And this is what attorney Ray Tierney was referring to. He wasn't going to read it, but it will speak for itself. And that document, and I would advise anyone, and I actually put it up on the Police Off the Cuff YouTube site, that hasn't seen that document to pull it up. And I put it on the YouTube studio so you could pull it up. It's 37 pages long, and it outlines this case in things that you have never seen before. Mike.
Billy, it's scary how thorough he was. He is crossing every I, crossing every T, dotting every I, and he is as thorough in his job in killing and getting away with it as any homicide detective in Suffolk County, or any homicide detective in New York City, or any FBI agent. That is how thorough he is. He is thorough. He's methodical. He's got this all planned out. I noticed one of the things that was there was a burn can, because he's probably going to burn gloves, if he's got some sort of Tyvek suit, he's going to burn that. He's going to burn the hairnet. He's going to burn, anything he can. Changing his tires, because in case he left tire impression, he has got this figured out, and he's probably read so much on that he could find on the internet, whatever, in books in the library, anything on law enforcement practices, on homicide scenes. He educated himself. He was a very formidable adversary out there committing homicides. And if he was sloppy in any way, he really wasn't, except for several instances we talked about. The only thing he couldn't predict was the ability of DNA technology to evolve over time, and the ability of cell phone tracking to improve. And he couldn't foresee that, but he was an amazingly organized, a brilliant, I'm not going to hate to use the word brilliant, but a fabulous adversary who was so dangerous because he was so controlled and so careful.
Absolutely. Folks, now I want to get to, of course, this is John Ray, and we're all familiar with the press conference he had the other day where he sort of pointed a finger at Victoria Heuermann and questions whether or not she is in fact involved in these murders. Right there, here, this is Robert Macedonio, who is the attorney for Asa Ellerup, and swears that she knew nothing about it. And again, you question, well, why does she need an attorney? And we'll get to that later on. Right here is John Ray and Vess Mitev. Obviously, several years ago, they both look much younger than they were, but Vess Mitev is now the attorney for Victoria Heuermann and her brother, Christopher. So when we talk about these attorneys, there's an incestuous nature to attorneys, and I mean that in the best way. They all know each other. They all have worked together. Michael Brown was a former Suffolk County District Attorney. Now he's a defense attorney, right? John Ray, of course, worked with Vess Mitev, Robert Macedonio. They all know each other. So no harm in love and law, as they say, right? But they all have an agenda. And I want to play a little bit of a clip from Robert Macedonio and Vess Mitev as they speak out about this case, their clients, and the innocence and the non-involvement of their clients in this case.
Everybody, thank you for coming out. I'm Bob Macedonio. I'm the attorney representing Asa Ellerup. As you're all aware, she's the wife of the Gilgo Beach serial killer suspect. On her behalf, she wanted me to express her thanks for the enormous outpouring of support that she's received in the past several weeks. We've gotten gift cards, care packages, food's been delivered to her house. There's also been a GoFundMe page that's been set up on our behalf, which I'd like to clarify some of the issues with that. The GoFundMe page that's been set up is 100% for the benefit of Asa and her children.
You know, obviously this was a bit ago, because now people have taken great umbrage in regards to the GoFundMe, in regards to the fact that Asa Ellerup is being viewed as a victim, that the her children, Christopher and Victoria, are being viewed as victims. And it's come full circle. And now, and Mike, one of the reasons, of course, that Asa Ellerup, Victoria Heuermann, and Christopher Heuermann need attorneys is because they're going to get sued by everyone and their brother on this earth that chases an ambulance.
Absolutely, Billy. You know, they're looking at the idea that people want cash. Okay. You know, you've got the other attorneys. We're going to get to them. You know, they're looking for a way, some sort of cause of action, as we'd say, to use in order to get money from Victoria. Now, Victoria and her children were very sympathetic in the beginning, but over the course of a year now, people in the media and also people in the chat, and we get all the email and stuff from people that they seem to have turned against Asa and her family, and that's really sad, because we have absolutely no objective indication of criminal activity by any of them, and all indications are that they did not know that of their homicidal instincts of Rex Heuermann. And so, to see this happen, this change from sympathy to outright hostility in the absence of anything objective is quite puzzling. And they have to take care of themselves, and they have to, because they have a future. They have to take care of themselves. Victoria has 2 children to take care of. She's a mom.
Mike, I think you're referring to Asa Ellerup.
I'm sorry, Asa. Thank you. She got Victoria and Christopher. So she's got to do that as a mom. And I bet you anybody who's hating on Asa, if they had switched places, they'd be doing the same thing that Asa is now. So they have to be very careful. And how do you protect your assets? You have an attorney. So you hire Robert Macedonio, and he can tell you how to protect whatever assets you have, your savings account, your real estate, your possessions, your car, all of those things, how to fend off a potential litigation. So it makes sense. She needs to make sure that she is providing for her children and that her children are provided for. I don't see the fact that it is puzzling when people would be willing to give to her GoFundMe. Now they're like, hey, why doesn't she take the money that she got from the GoFundMe and start handing it out to all the victims' families?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brooklyn Janet, thank you for $4.99 super sticker. What are the insinuations about Heuermann's daughter about? Well, the insinuations are that they've discovered some disturbing artwork online that she posted on a certain site on the internet and
On Tumblr or something.
Tumblr. John Ray has sort of pointed to that as evidence that she knew all about what her father was doing. Their allegations, they're not even, well, they have no merit in regards to connecting her to any crimes because, Rex Heuermann started these murders as that we know of in 1993, when Sandra Costilla was murdered. And Victoria Heuermann wasn't even born yet. So, people want to point the finger, but that's, you got to look. And when most of his murders occurred, 2007, 2009, and 2 in 2010, she would have been way too young. I mean, it's sort of preposterous to think that she was involved in it. Let me go back to Robert Macedonio, the attorney for Asa Ellerup.
This law firm or any associations of us, we take no funds from that. She will receive 100% of the funds from that. The GoFundMe page was set up by Melissa Moore, who is the daughter of the serial killer, the Happy Face killer, who in the late 90s was convicted of killing at least 5 sex workers in the Midwest. She was 16 years old when her father was arrested. She reached out immediately to myself, and we put her in contact with Asa, and they have started the GoFundMe page. Like I said, 100% of the proceeds from that GoFundMe goes to Asa. At this time, Asa has authorized me to relay to everybody that for the past several years, she's been suffering from cancer. She has breast cancer. She also has skin cancer. She's presently under a course of treatment that's going to continue for the next 12 to 18 months. Now, why I bring that up is because her health insurance is due to expire in the next 60 days. The source of her health insurance was from her husband's employer. He was the employee. So when the funds run out, his business accounts, the health insurance will no longer be available for her to treat the cancer. It's going to be
okay. This was when the arrest first went down. So we're not really looking to rehear all of this stuff. We just wanted to sort of give you an idea of who these attorneys are and what their motivations are in representing the members of Rex Heuermann's family.
Sure. Before that, I just want to piggyback off something Mr. Macedonio just said, and this goes back maybe 2 days, but this DNA order that was cut, okay, that's a very standard order in any kind of criminal prosecution. This was a order that was going to be granted no matter what, okay? Anytime you have a case involving DNA evidence, a buccal swab is quite standard. The state of, the laws of the state of New York are that you can be required, subject to your constitutional limitations, to provide what's called non-testimonial evidence, hair, materials, DNA. So that order was completely pro forma. I understand it was reported in the media as this groundbreaking, earth-shaking moment in the case, but it's not. It gets cut in every case, and if it wasn't ordered, it would have been immediately created an appealable issue. So back to your question.
Okay, this is early. That was early on in the investigation. We sort of just want to introduce you to who these attorneys are, because we get later on, of course, and they're rivals now of the attorney John Ray, and it seems a little strange that they're rivals because they were all buddies. Vess Mitev was an associate of John Ray, and to now look at it and realize that they're rivals, it doesn't make all that much sense, Mike. But they're attacking him in regards specifically to the press conference he was involved in just the other day. And does that seem a little bit strange to you, Mike?
No, not at all. No, I hate to say it sounds ridiculous, but all's fair in love and war. They were friends. They were associates. They've known each other for years. They all practice in Suffolk County. However, they don't represent each other. They represent as friends, they represent solely their client. So Vess represents Victoria and Christopher, and Robert Macedonia represents Asa, and you got Johnny Ray. They might have all been friends. He's looking, he's got Shannan Gilbert's family, but their customers, their clients' interests are now going to cross, and they're in conflict with each other. When John Ray puts out a press conference insinuating that that Vess Mitev's client insinuates very strongly that their client is actually somehow knowledgeable about the actions of the father and may somehow have had a lot of exposure to some of the killings and clearly may have had some minor little part. At that point, you got to say, as your Vess Mitev, you got to say, stop it right then and there. Don't go any farther. You're defaming my client. Even though we're friends, we've been friends before. We were associates. You are now insinuating. You're trying to damage my client on behalf of your client's family, and I won't allow that. It'd be the same thing if you, me, and Phil were all attorneys and we're in their position. We'd be like, "Hey, Bill. Hey, Phil. Or hey, Mike. Stop saying that. You're damaging my client." That's the way it goes. They hired guns for their client and no one else. They'll be friends again after this case is over. Everything is settled. The dust is settled. But there's money on the line, and they are doing their best. Each one of them is trying to do what they think is the best, even if we don't agree with it. Trying to do what they think is best for their client. So it's a weird relationship.
Absolutely. JW, thank you for the $4 super sticker. I want to go right to John Ray, and this was from Law and Crime. For those that didn't see his press conference the other day, he said many disturbing things, raised many disturbing allegations.
Work. You will see that we are not talking here about, what should I call it? Merely murder. I say it ironically. We're talking about people who are involved and interested in torture, horrifying torture of the people we know are now dead, and many more yet to come. We are talking about the potentiality of cannibalism, hard war. We are talking about the use of porno to effect what has happened.
Okay, this is the first time we have ever heard mention of cannibalism in connection.
Yeah, I think he's gonna with that. He's gonna lose some of his credibility because it's not. There's no connection. There's no nexus between these pictures and him raising that allegation. Let me go back to John Ray.
That we've been sold a story by the Heuermann family. Take a look at the first page and the picture that's to the right. That's Victoria Heuermann as she tried to appear to the press when you first confronted her at the home in Massapequa Park. There she is in her little girl's uniform. She's 27 years old with a school bag draped over her. Her hair in a nice little bun. Very innocent looking person. The other picture is also Victoria Heuermann, as she really is, as she portrays herself on the internet, as she actually looks. We've been sold a bill of goods. If you look at her artwork, in the top page, her artwork consists that she posted online of a human skull. That's just the beginning. After the indictments, oddly enough, and you folks took the picture, you see Victoria Heuermann walking out, I believe from her house. And I thought it was odd when I saw it. But you'll notice she's wearing a shirt that depicts, right after her father is indicted, for these murdered women, it depicts a human skeleton. That's what she's wearing. This appears to be the remains of a human being that looks half eaten. Remember that Victoria Heuermann is on the internet reading words and looking at pictures that deal with hard vor. That is to say, cannibalism. If you look at the full color packet I gave you, there are other pictures in there that are so atrocious we didn't even put them up.
You know, Mike, the disturbing thing about this is what are you trying to prove? You're not connecting this to anything. And what does it mean? And I think other attorneys are cringing watching this press conference. And unfortunately, he had a real superstar next to him and Dr. Ricardo, a serial killer expert, Columbia University professor, Boston University professor, is a associate of the Cold Case Foundation. I don't know if I would have wanted to be associated with this press conference. I really don't. What do you think?
Billy, it was, I think honestly, John Ray's heart is in the right place. I think he's trying to do the best he can for Shannan Gilbert's family and keep Shannan Gilbert's memory alive. But I think after the indictments last summer and the other two indictments now, I think he's feeling like Shannan Gilbert's ordeal has been pushed to the side. It's no longer relevant, and he wants to bring it back to the center. And I think he's desperately looking for a way to do that. And attacking somebody's taste in art, to me, it's like attacking somebody's taste in headbanging rock and roll music or some sort of alternative music. What does it prove? It doesn't prove anything. And the fact that she has a shirt with a human a skeleton on it. Hey, I have a plastic skeleton in my garage. I put it in a chair on my lawn every Halloween. You know, when I was a kid, I had a shirt that had a picture of Snoopy and the Peanuts gang on it. You know, what does that think? Do I think I am a cartoon character? No. You know, he's really trying to stretch and he's trying to make a point where there really is no connection. And I really think that although he had good intentions, I think it was probably one of the worst things he could have done, because I think it turned off a lot of people who still thought that he was talking, still had something credible to say. But I think at this point, people just think he's desperate. So in a way, I feel sorry for him, because I think he way overstepped his bounds. And if I am, Vess Mitev or Robert Macedonia, I'd be really angry at what he's done.
Well, you brought it up. I'm going to play Vess Mitev's reaction to this.
Joined by attorney Vess Mitev, who represents Heuermann's two children. Great to have you on the show. Victoria and Christopher didn't attend the hearing today, but they must know about these new, very disturbing charges. Do you have any reaction for them?
Well, for them, as we've said all along, they're, sort of unfortunate bystanders. They're on this twisted carousel ride that is not of their own making at all. If you want to talk about allegations, the most important thing that came out of the bail application today, as far as we're concerned, is, again, the DA saying in no uncertain terms that these allegations that date back some 30 years have nothing to do with either the children, my clients, or young adults, or Miss Ellerup. So that cannot be underscored. And the rest of it is, of course, the sins of the father, allegedly. And they're all allegations, as Mr. Brown pointed out today to the reporters. And like we've said all along, they're not gonna take the bait here. They're not gonna, try this case in the court of public opinion, because in the court of public opinion, I think it's safe to say there's already been a conviction. In the courtroom, much different. There's a quantum leap between allegations and a conviction, and they plan to follow the process along, as we're all following the process along until and if it concludes.
Yeah, everybody in this country is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But that blueprint that was found in the basement of the Heuermann home is pretty shocking. Are they aware of its contents?
Well, they were aware that something was happening, and again, we're all bystanders, right? Again, this is not of their own making, and the allegations are shocking. They are, certainly, but again, they're allegations. The blueprint itself, as it's been called, from a criminal defense standpoint, it's almost a little too neat, one might say, of course, because it seems to tie in everything almost perfectly, inescapably. So
Mr. Brown has his work cut out for him, and I know the DA does as well, because I don't think this case is going to be resolved. You know, if it takes 30 years to commit these acts, it's not going to be resolved in 30 months. So they're all along for this marathon.
Asa Ellerup has said she is giving her husband, Rex Heuermann, the benefit of the doubt about his innocence. Is the same true for Victoria and Christopher?
Well, as I said, these are two young adults, and they are standing tall in the face of searing adversity, okay? And if this happened to you or me or anyone else we know, I think we would have crumbled into sawdust by now, by the mere fact that we are associated with this, which is, you know, an unparalleled, unheard of case. So the mere fact that they're still here day to day, you know, with their family, their small little unit, that small little dog that you see there, that's Stewie, you know, just trying the best they can, putting one foot in front of the other and trying to, you know, pick up the pieces as they're simultaneously being torn down. That's their life. That's their existence for going on 14 months now. So
yeah, you said it was like living in quicksand.
Living in, you know, I said it before and I'll say it again. It really is. It's constantly shifting. Their environment is constantly changing. They're reevaluating minute by minute, hour by hour. And I'm sure that, you know, you heard Mr. Tierney say today, they're still investigating. So, you know, this is a grim marathon. They're here for it. It's not a sprint. They know that. They've come to grips with that, which again takes, you know, my hat is off to them because their character is unimpeachable. And the DA has said as much.
Vess Mitev, grim marathon is a very good way to describe the ordeal, not just for Rex Heuermann's family, but the family of all these victims of these women.
So, you know, that's Vess Mitev. And like, you know, attorneys speak. They speak in a certain way. They speak in a certain way, but they think in another way. All right. They know what's going on. They know what time it is, as we used to say in the police department. They know that 37-page bail application document is damning, is so powerful evidence. And to make light of it is to, well, and of course they have to. It's like, you know, it's like going into a game, a sport, and think, oh, I can't beat this guy. You've already lost if you feel that way, right? So you got to go into the event with confidence and knowing that you're going to use all your abilities to try to defeat this. But, you know, look, the press conference the other day by John Ray, I think it proves nothing. Is it possible that Victoria Heuermann has some issues? Yeah, I would say so. She's got the genetic code of an alleged serial killer. So yes, I think she's probably got some issues. But does this artwork prove anything? It proves nothing, Mike.
Bill, it doesn't. And I think Mr. Mitev, you know, he's doing his best to protect his client. Remember, his client is the children, and that's Victoria and the son, Christopher. And, you know, he's doing the best he can. And like he said, what would people think if they were in that family's position? I remember seeing a video years ago about the BTK killer and interviews with his daughter. And, you know, you move out of state, you change your name, you know, you hide. It really forces you to go underground and try to develop a whole new name and personality and a whole new life. So they have been robbed of their future on Long Island, even though we don't think much of that home or Rex Heuermann as a parent, or maybe even people might consider Asa, you know, maybe not the best mom. You know, they were a family unit, and they've been torn apart, and they're sitting in this house that's been raided twice and gone through by the police. They've got nowhere else to go, you know, and they're trying to survive. My heart goes out to them because I don't think there's any evidence whatsoever, no objective evidence has ever been offered other than some sort of insinuations that they have done anything at all wrong at any time. So, you know, I think that I'm shocked that, you know, what John Ray said. I know he's trying his best to keep his clients, his families, the family of Shannan Gilbert, his clients, you know, in the loop and keep that case relevant. But I think that passed by, and I don't think a lot of people see it as relevant anymore. And he's doing his best, but everybody, you know, you can't fault him for doing his best. But when it does tread upon the rights of other people, and you're endangering Victoria and her family and Asa and the family by your insinuations, trying to rile people up, I think that's a real disservice to the public and to the survivors here, the Heuermann family, the 3 survivors.
Absolutely.
it's real disturbing.
Retired NYPD Captain Tom Cusinelli, he said it proved nothing. Agreed. I think Tom Cusinelli is also an attorney. He feels that John Ray is trying to stay in the game to either have some kind of book deal, some movie deal, because he has been around this case the longest. And, to his credit, I will give him some credit. He kept this case alive. He kept this investigation, kept the pressure on. And for that reason, I would say, the other attorneys accuse him of just trying to remain relevant. And just to those that don't know, John Ray hasn't received a dime from the family of Shannan Gilbert. And as far as I know, there's only one really living heir of Shannan Gilbert's family. And she spoke out against John Ray the other day. She wasn't happy with that press conference. And if you know any of the history of it, Shannan Gilbert's sister murdered her mother. So it's really somewhat of it's a dysfunctional family, obviously, and many of us have dysfunctional families. But that's, I don't know how much there is left of Shannan Gilbert's family. I want to play now another attorney involved in this, and you've seen her in many cases. She pops up, and her name is Gloria Allred. She's sort of the activist attorney, and she's representing a group of Gilgo family survivors. And, one of the things that I want us all to remember, why are these attorneys all showing up? They're not showing up because they need exercise going out to Eastern Long Island. They're showing up because they intend to sue people and they intend to get money. So, and look, I'm not disparaging that. That's what they do. That's their livelihood. Let's put this up on the screen. This is Gloria Allred.
Attorney Gloria Allred, who represents the family of victim Jessica Taylor. Gloria, thanks so much for joining us on this. And first of all, can we just ask how's the Taylor family doing tonight now that Heuermann has been formally charged with Jessica's death?
Well, this, of course, it has been long-awaited decision. She, as her cousin said at the press conference a couple days ago, she has been missing longer than she was alive, 21 years. And so finally, even though her body was discovered a long time ago, there was not enough evidence from the prosecutor's point of view to charge the defendant with her death. But now there is. They found a hair under the blanket that she was wrapped in. And the DNA was analyzed, mitochondrial DNA, every test possible was performed on it, and it could not exclude the defendant. So he was charged with second-degree murder. The murder is absolutely horrific. He is alleged to have decapitated Jessica, also to have dismembered her, to have cut off her arms below the elbow, to have rubbed her tattoos in such a way to try to make the tattoos disappear. He did something to her nipples. I'm not sure what, but it was something he should never have done. This is horrific if it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it. I do also represent a number of the other alleged victims, Megan, Melissa, Maureen, in terms of their family members and friends. And they are so brave, the family members all supporting each other. And that's a beautiful thing to see. They're going to continue to be a voice for their family members. And as the mom said, Jessica's mom, Jessica will forever be in their hearts. She will never be forgotten.
Wow. Gloria, I have to ask you, with these details you're mentioning, we have to talk about the hard drive investigators found. These murder blueprints, one section titled Things to Remember, these notes, including highlighting lessons from previous killings. And it really struck me as you were talking, because it's not just the checklists of supplies. There is a note in there to remove the head and hands. In your eyes, what does this discovery mean for this case? What does it mean for the families of these victims?
Yeah, well, we don't know if they were tortured before they were killed. I hope not, but yeah, I don't know. Some of these details we'll have to find out at the trial if they're available and can be presented as evidence at that time. But it's interesting that you mentioned this blueprint because he is or was an architect. So it's not a surprise that he would kind of make a blueprint of what his plan would be. But this is horrific. This is a man who had no criminal history, but we're very, very happy that he's been apprehended, that he will not get bail. He is in custody. And there are many other bodies, by the way, and the investigation continues. So we don't know if there will be enough evidence to also charge the defendant with other murders as well. They're being very careful. The FBI is also involved, and we'll see what they come out with. Again, the burden of the prosecutor is to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So speculation is not going to be enough.
Thank you for watching.
So, Mike, I just got to go to a quick commercial, and I want to ask you this question. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, hit the like button, share us with your friends and your family. If you want to contribute to us, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. We also have a YouTube channel membership that is growing by leaps and bounds, and that has 5 different levels to become a Police Off the Cuff channel member. Mike, what I wanted to ask was, all right, very clear. All of a sudden, Gloria Allred shows up, right? Mm-hmm. And she's representing no less than 3 of the families. Right. Who is she going to sue? Where's she getting her money from, Mike?
At this point, she doesn't have a cause of action against anyone in particular at all. I think she's looking for an angle. She's looking for a cause of action. She wants to see something that may implicate Victoria or the children, and maybe take something that, take money, get money from them. She doesn't have anything right now. She's like Johnny Ray. He's still in the wings. He's hoping for a cause of action. But and everybody's looking at Asa. Asa's got a target on her back because she may have money left over from the GoFundMe page. She signed a deal with I don't know if it was Netflix or something like that. So so she's got a bank account. Who knows how much is left? She's got medical bills and all that other stuff. But
Mike, let me stop you for a second. The deep pockets of the municipality, the Suffolk County Police,
could be.
That is who I think the target will be. And could they even sue them and claim incompetence because of Chief James Burke? In the early on in this investigation, they had a police commissioner named Dorner who denied that this was even a serial killer. Oh no, there's nothing to do with it, And it was just like, it just did not seem like they had the competence in their investigators going back many, many years. In fact, I'm going to play a clip from 12 years ago where attorney John Ray appears with, guess who's next to him? The mother of Shannan Gilbert. And guess who's next to the mother of Shannan Gilbert? Attorney Vess Mitev. Yes. He looks a hell of a lot different than he looks now, but I think this is so interesting to watch this.
We're here today at the site of these terrible crimes because the Suffolk County Police Department is grossly derelict in its duty, not only to have investigated these murders properly, but also because they failed to protect the lives of these people who are now gone. And that is certainly inclusive of Shannan. There is no doubt from what we know of the evidence that Shannan would still be alive today if Suffolk County Police had actually done their job. But instead, the Commissioner of Police in Suffolk County has acted like he's running an investigation like the Pink Panther.
Today, I hope this brings us one step closer to finding a killer, but we need help. We need help from the public. We need help from the FBI. We need help from you news media. Is all I'm requesting is this. Think of it as if it was your child. If it was your mother or your father or your sister or your brother, how would you feel that someone knew something, someone could help, but didn't want to, and they didn't care? Is all that I am asking for my family and on behalf of the other victims' families is please help end my pain and their pain and find this killer before he strikes and hurts and murders someone that you love.
So that was 12 years
Right.
ago. And in that little video, I think that John Ray right there put his intentions out. Someone's going to be suing the Suffolk County Police Department.
Oh, yeah.
For negligence, whether or not that they can collect, but the deep pockets of the municipality. And there's no doubt that many of these victims, of course, are going to sue Asa Ellerup and her two children. Specifically, Robert Macedonio, the attorney for Asa Ellerup, has advised her to divorce Rex Heuermann, because this way she distances herself from him and protects her assets from any potential lawsuits that will be coming her way. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, looking at that press conference, I'm looking at Johnny Ray, and he's saying that they're totally negligent. The Suffolk County Police Department was totally negligent in the investigation of this case. However, remember, Shannan Gilbert's case, when they found Shannan Gilbert and they did the autopsy, the medical examiner declared that it was undetermined. So she's not part of any homicide investigation. There is no negligence shown in the fact that that it took a year to find her body, because nobody had any idea where she ran to, and they're in the marsh, and so she could have been over here, over there. Who knows what direction she went in, because it was like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, and everyone split after she ran out of the house. Even her chauffeur split. So to say that they were negligent after the fact, after she probably was already passed away, negligent in finding her body, I think that's really where he's going. But he can get some money perhaps out of Suffolk County for that, but I don't think they're going to get much. I think you could sue the city. I used to see this all the time. People will sue the city for $10 million and they'll accept $100,000. So I think Johnny Ray, that's where he's going with that. So they have the deep pockets, but you still have to make out your case in front of a jury in a trial, even though most cases like this will settle beforehand. And the fact that he's not representing right now that we know of any way, shape, or form what are the identifiable victims of Rex Heuermann, the Gilgo 4 and Costilla, and Taylor, who were just added to that to make 6. He's not representing them. So those, the Gloria Allred, her clients, the families of those poor girls, they stand in a slightly different position legally than Johnny Ray, because there's no connection established between Heuermann and Shannan Gilbert. So, but I think what he's looking for a settlement. And I think that's where he's going.
Mike, Tom Cusinelli, in the civil case, all witnesses can be deposed after the criminal trial. There may be statute of limitations. What do you think, Mike? Notice of claims filed timely against Suffolk County?
Good question. That's an excellent question. You have to file that notice of claim. And that notice of claim is, for everybody who's not an attorney, you have, before you initiate your law, you get your papers and you get your complaint all typed up and you serve it upon the municipality. You have to give them notice that you're going to be suing them. And so the statute of limitations applies to how long you have between the wrong that you're claiming was done to you by the municipality or their workers and the time that you file the notice of claim. Once you file the notice of claim, the clock stops. But you have to have filed that notice of claim in a time. It's probably, depending I'm going to say it's so long. We did this so long ago. We did a lot. I think it's about a year. You had like a year to file your notice of claim. And depending, it was like a civil rights complaint in federal court. I think you had 3 years, something like that. But if he has not yet filed a notice of claim, I don't think he stands a chance. If he had filed a notice of claim many years ago, when everything was fresh, and now they've just been arguing about it for like 12 years, that's different. But I think, Tom Cusinelli, you're right. That's a very good question, and it's all statutory. There's no getting around it. So who knows? Maybe Johnny Ray doesn't have a viable claim. Maybe the statute of limitations to file the notice of claim is passed.
Candy from the chat, from Gloria, what were done to the nipples? We know so many details, but not this. Why? Well, it's in the 37-page bail application that I referred to. If you get yourself a copy of that, you can read all about this. This wasn't the first time we heard about this. I was a little shocked that she spoke about it on television.
Right.
This is definitely an adult case. It's not PG. It's definitely rated R. I want to play this. This is the case that everyone is interested, of course. Let me just play a little bit of this.
Yeah, there's somebody after me. I'm sorry? There's somebody after me.
This is a 13-year case, so as you saw, we have a great deal of information, evidence, photographs, reports.
This case is a case that we're going to try in the courtroom. The press has convicted my client without seeing a shred of evidence.
She had no idea any of this was going on, or the allegations were even her husband was a suspect.
The charges in the indictment are just allegations, so this is the first step in the process of proving those allegations.
The case of the so-called Long Island Gilgo Beach serial killer is one that's grabbed headlines from the beginning. I mean, even going back to when, at first, all of these victims were found, and then the case went unsolved, and then there was controversy with the police department, some corruption there, and it took forever. But then the case finally broke, and a new task force was able to arrest this man, who's been charged now with 6 victims. 6 victims: Megan Waterman, Melissa Barthélemy, Amber Costello, Maureen Barnes, Jessica Taylor, and Sandra Costilla. And 2 more just added. And you don't know how many more he's responsible for. So there's still a lot of interest in this defendant in this case. By the way, he and his attorney have denied all these allegations, as has really his family, who doesn't believe that he is capable of this. So they're the ones on the outside, the family of the accused Long Island killer. So there's been a spotlight on them for many reasons. They're the ones closest to the suspect. They were living with this man in a very small home in a very nice community. We understand that there's a Peacock series that's being produced as this case is progressing. That will give us insight down the road, probably more to what they're thinking. And the house that they all lived in may very well be the scene of some of the murders here. So you put all that together, there's a lot of attention on the family. But there's even more attention being put on them now by someone who's been a guest on our show many, many times. And I'm going to speak with him right now. Joining us, the attorney representing the family of victim Shannan Gilbert, who still has not been officially connected to this killer, but is the reason that this case has progressed because of her. John Ray is back with us. John, nice to see you tonight.
You too, Vinny.
So you go on social media, and all of a sudden, John Ray is making people talk again. And this one probably is the most controversial thing that you've talked about so far. And you've been talking about the daughter of the suspected Long Island serial killer. And some folks are upset about it. Some folks are really upset about it. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to explain what you were talking about at your last, I guess, press conference that you had, and what is driving what you're doing now.
Okay, well, to lead off, what I'm saying, first of all, is that with the facts and circumstances that are now known, including the various sites that Victoria was looking at on her computer, and certain other things she said, all put together, this whole thing, she is not outside the circle of suspects involved in some way in this case and should be looked at with suspicion and should be further investigated. That's all I've said. Now, I say that I know there are a lot of people who are angry. These are the people who they exalt victimhood above all things and don't pay attention to the facts. And that what they're saying is essentially absurd. That is that this girl who stands by her father as we speak, the man who chopped up those girls, who had no regard for them whatsoever, she is somehow not to be spoken about other than as a victim herself, when that's just not the case. So they don't like that. They just want to make her a victim regardless. And so they say all kinds of terrible things about me. They rage.
No, they do.
I was on here the other night that were screaming and shouting about me the whole time. But I'm not the issue. The facts are and the circumstances are the issue.
So what
we discovered in my team?
If you can go through some of the things that you and give us like what you found and how it was found and how this is now part of this case or investigation from your perspective.
Okay. Well, I assembled a group of people who are really good at diving down into the computer, into these programs and seeing what was there. I don't have that capacity nor that skill. So they do it. And what we did, we discovered that Victoria, contrary to the way she's posed her image so far on the, in the public, has been looking at certain really awful, ferocious sites containing some of the worst things that humankind can conceive. And these sites they're on a thing called Galira. And I don't know all the details as to if you ask me to explain how Galira works and so forth. They show deviant art. They show some of the worst art you can imagine and words that accompany that art. And I've published both of them to the public via my press conference. She's looking at cannibalism. She's looking at people being chopped up, bodies being hacked to pieces. She's looking at people disemboweling women. She's looking at all kinds of things that are.
Yeah, Mike, this is this is really disturbing, especially coming from an attorney, because there's nothing he could prove about this. This does not create a nexus between Victoria Heuermann and her involvement in her father's alleged crimes. And the other part of this is doesn't even reach the level of allegations. Is it disturbing? Yes, it's disturbing, but you go into any family in this whole country, you'll find disturbing things. And I'm just saying, look, the level of evidence you need, they need probable cause. And one of the things I want to bring up to everyone, the police, the Suffolk County Police, the FBI, the New York State Police, the investigators from Ray Tierney's District Attorney's Office, the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office, all have been investigating this, and they had months to look into Asa Ellerup, Victoria Heuermann, and Christopher Heuermann. And don't you think they did warrants on their computers? They searched their phones, and guess what? They determined they weren't involved. So how do you come out of left field with all of this? It's not even circumstantial evidence. It doesn't prove anything. Is it disturbing? Yes, but as I said earlier, Victoria Heuermann has the genes of an alleged serial killer.
And anytime you start criticizing somebody's taste in art, or music, or food, it's just ridiculous. He is turning Victoria into a victim. Victoria hasn't talked to anybody. She's got an attorney to do that for her. She and Christopher. And Johnny Ray has put himself in the spotlight because he's trying to achieve a particular goal. If Johnny Ray was if the roles were switched and Johnny Ray was protecting, was the attorney for Victoria and Christopher, and Vess Mitev did what Johnny Ray had done in that press conference, Johnny Ray would be screaming right now about how bad and how awful Vess Mitev is. So it's ridiculous. He's using this term, circle of suspects, circumstantially. They need to be investigated more. That's all I'm saying. You know what? You don't think that their movements have been carefully watched in terms of the phone and things like that? Come on. You know, the FBI has no reason not to put the cuffs on Asa or Victoria if they thought that, you know, they were involved somehow even tangentially in this case. What he's saying, it doesn't make any sense. And I think he's got a right to say what he has to say, but he's skirting on the line. He's toeing the line of defamation. So if I was Vess, I'd call him up and say, don't you dare to ever do that again, because I'm going to initiate a lawsuit against you for defamation. How dare you do that?
Well, this is the response, Mike, from Robert Macedonio.
Good.
Heuermann is the third suspect that John Ray is accused of committing these crimes. His one and only client, Shannan Gilbert, is not part of the Gilgo Beach homicide victims. It was an accidental death ruled by the Suffolk County Homicide Squad over and over and over again. He's not accepting that. The task force that Ray Tierney has put together in this, exceptional. The work they're doing is exceptional. They've dismissed John Ray as almost irrelevant in this act. So he had his press conference, Rodney Harrison, the former police commissioner. The DA gave a scathing response to that. We have to stop giving him so much airtime. I know it's made good for TV, but he's becoming reckless. He wants my client to sue him.
Okay, John, your response to the accusations from Bob.
This is a public case, these are public cases. I'm on TV because I have information and I represent victims. I represent not only Shannan Gilbert's family, but I represent other victims who have escaped Rex Heuermann, who were taunted and chased by him and managed to survive. For long months, I represented the Jessica Taylor family. So this, you know, the idea that I'm on TV putting out what should be put out, that's what you do when you have a case like this. Just like Mr. Macedonio and Mr. Mitev are paid hundreds of thousands of dollars by Peacock to represent their clients and appear on TV. I'm paid zero. I'm doing this for a good cause. They're doing it for the money. And indeed, when we speak about Victoria, she gave up any chance, and I said this at my press conference, of saying that we should consider her as a hapless victim when she took all that money from Peacock to be followed around and to have her persona exposed as she wants it to be. Look at the picture that she first had taken of her when she first met the press. She's standing there in little schoolgirl clothes with a little schoolgirl bag on it and a nice little bun on her hair. But look at the other Victoria, who she herself published it. I published it for you. She's Gothic. There's nothing wrong per se with being Gothic, but don't come and try to fool the public as to what you are, like this little innocent schoolgirl. She wasn't, and she never was. So here's what she.
But you know, none of this means anything. It absolutely doesn't mean a damn thing. And you know, let me continue. Let me just play this now. We're gonna have Vess Mitev come on.
Not going there.
The accused Long Island serial killer, that's his wife, who was outside his home. Matt Johnson was there when the story was all breaking about the arrest. He has 2 children, and now here to respond to the allegations made by John Ray, the attorney representing the children of the accused killer. Vess Mitev is back with us. Vess, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Do you want to just respond, or do you want me to give you specific things to respond to? Because I want to give you an opportunity to give you and your client's side of everything that's going on here.
Well, thank you. I think the allegations are just that.
They're delusional, they're deranged, and what's alleged without evidence should also be discounted without evidence. And unfortunately, as I said, it's been widely quoted, I mean, this is nothing more than a continued frivolous sideshow by someone with no clients involved in this case. His one and only client was ruled to be a suicide after his press conference last week. I think Shannan Gilbert, the last surviving sister, was on social media distancing herself entirely, saying she did not agree with anything that he was saying. She had no knowledge of the press conference, that, she was done with that attorney and his firm. So again, what do we have here? We have, all these things that he's come up with, the circle of suspicion. Well, the DA deals with the rhombus of evidence, and that evidence, according to the district attorney's office, has explicitly excluded both of my clients as well as Miss Ellerup. And we could say that until we're blue in the face, but apparently it falls on some people's deaf ears, because people that listen to this carnival sideshow, they buy it. And there's been money donated to the GoFundMe that I'm being told now has happened as a result of this. And again, you have zero evidence of any of this. You just heard, I think you just heard him remark about certain art or what have you. I'll say this. Obviously, Victoria is interested in art. She was an art aficionado. She went, she took art classes. She, was two of her favorite artists are Francis Bacon and Hieronymus Bosch, who, of course, his famous painting is the triptych, The Garden of Earthly Delights. And Francis Bacon, if you read anything about him, he dealt in what was called the brutality of fact. And some of his art deals with the exact same things, and it's, that he talks about. But of course, these are two of the most famous artists that ever lived. They're revered, they're studied by art historians. So, to link those somehow is completely reckless. It's defamatory, it's irresponsible. I could go on and on and on, but suffice it to say that nothing of what he has said has any basis in fact whatsoever. If there was any basis in fact, the district attorney, the law enforcement task force that's been tasked with this, not conspirators on the internet, amateur sleuths, cosplaying investigators, people that have no idea what's going on, except for apparently they are all unified by this, almost otherworldly desire to get on TV and get on Reddit and social media and make unfounded claims with no consequence. That's all you have here. So I'm chagrined that I'm even here to respond to this, but that's the response, which is there is no response necessary because it is a carnival sideshow.
And you talk about social media, the explosion on social media is where the groundswell is. Can you give us an idea of what Victoria's life, day-to-day life is like right now?
Well, once again, she's squarely in the crosshairs of the media spotlight, and now she's being talked about, as if she was a ritualistic, demonic cannibalizer. That's what was said about her at that press conference. And going back till 2023, almost a year, the same drumbeat has been repeating, with respect to her mother as well, by the same attorney who has alleged that they're all part of a criminal conspiracy. He's actually said that. So these are all, again, defamatory statements. They're defamatory per se. They seem only to be made with the intent of getting a lawsuit brought upon this person, but and of course that would only allow it would further engender his ability to sort of occupy the spotlight. So that's not something that my clients are interested in at this point, but all options are on the table. But as far as her everyday life, it is a hard scrabble existence. It is sad. You would not, a lot of talk about her not being a victim, but I couldn't possibly disagree more. She has currently no father. She is obviously being made into an internet pariah by this gentleman and his cohorts completely unfairly before an even ounce of actual evidence has been produced. They live in the same, very small, very upturned house that they've lived in the whole time. And their neighbors all know who they are. And I've said this before on the show. You and I would have crumbled a long time ago, and we would have been swept away, because even waking up in the morning is tough enough on an everyday existence. But to wake up in the morning and not to know whether or not the police are going to raid your house again, not to know whether somebody's going to go on TV and a press conference and accuse you of taking part in demonic rituals without any evidence, not to know when and if your father, if he's ever.
I think Vess Mitev spoke pretty well about this. I think that it's not, to make these allegations against someone, you absolutely need evidence. You absolutely need proof. And I don't think what he's presenting is proof. And Mike, what's the point of it then?
I think the point of it is to keep his name in the limelight, keep the Shannan Gilbert name in the limelight. And I think it could be to, as Vess Mitev said, he's maybe trying to provoke a defamation lawsuit against Johnny Ray so that Johnny Ray can hold more press conferences. I think that's really that what he's doing. I think that's all it's about. It's sad, but I think the case has passed Shannan Gilbert by, because there was the task force formed and you have now 6 indictments. And I think up until that point, Johnny Ray could argue very convincingly and be very sympathetic to the plight of Shannan Gilbert. And once they had discovered the bodies of the Gilgo 4, he could be there talking about this, and that's okay. But now that the case has been solved and we've moved on, I don't think he's looking for something to hang his hat on so that he can get in front of the spotlight. And I don't think this is the way to go.
Absolutely. I always like to read compliments in the chat. And Doc K, thank you so much for the compliment. I bet both of you were /are great professors. Well, thank you very much.
You.
I'm sure Mike still is. I sort of haven't taught college in a while, but every once in a while I go back to the classroom and just as a guest speaker. YouTube user from the chat, Rex was grooming his daughter, encouraging expression of such ideas to normalize his own faulty thinking, just as he groomed and manipulated his wife to accept him bringing sex workers into the home. YouTube user, I think that goes against what a serial killer is, and it's almost all the time a lone wolf. Well, actually 80% of the time. 20% of the time there are serial killers that do have accomplices. But Rex Heuermann, from everything we know, was a lone wolf serial killer, was a solo person, and that's more. But you listen to the experts, Dr. Gary Boccato, you listen to Dr. Joni Johnston, you listen to FBI agent Jim Clemente, retired, who's brilliant, by the way. And they've all said that they believe Rex Heuermann was sort of worked alone. He was a lone wolf. He didn't involve anyone else. And I don't say, look, the science is not exact, but what we have is experts. They're the most expert at that topic, which is a very precise and probably, very disturbing field to be in, because to get good at that field, you have to interview serial killers. Does anyone in the chat want to sit with a serial killer for hours? And maybe you would say, it would be fascinating. But I think after a while, it would get to your own psyche to talk to these people that have absolutely zero conscience, and they get off on hurting people. And most of them are sexual sadists. And I certainly wouldn't want to be around people like that for very long. Mike?
Yeah, Billy, as you were reading that, I'm thinking, other than the word grooming, I think that that subscriber had some good ideas. I believe Rex Heuermann probably got Elsa to accept the fact that maybe he did have a girlfriend on the side, or however he described it to her. But I think she knew that there was some hanky-panky outside the marriage going on. I don't think she knew the extent of it, obviously, but I think she knew that Rex did that sort of thing. And I think he may have he had some reading material that was rather maybe inappropriate for a young girl or young boy, and maybe had some disturbing images. So he may, and so I wouldn't use the word groom, but in some ways, maybe he did have a few images like that, but not talk to the children about it, but have some images about that maybe he himself also found fascinating about it. It's really a deep dive into a psyche of one man, but also a collective psyche of the family group dynamic. So it's a really amazingly complicated investigation to figure out how do you kind of figure out how did the family dynamic work, but really good, thoughtful analysis by and thoughtful questions by the chat. Really good.
Absolutely.
Really good.
Eyes on Heaven in the chat. I watched the stream a few months ago that Ray was on. Wow, he and a New York cop were going at it. That was on our show, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And it got a little ugly and bombastic. And I, you know, as you said it, I don't know if I have it queued up to the right spot, but here it is.
Bill, you got something to ask Mr. Ray? Yeah, I just want to echo the words of Bill earlier. I think we have to acknowledge that Attorney Johnny Ray did keep this case in the media. I think that was very, very helpful to keep this case active, so to speak. There were a lot of victims in this case. However, I do disagree with some of the things that he stated with regard to Shannan Gilbert. I know that is 100% that there was corruption with the district attorney's office in Suffolk County, and as well as the police commissioner Burke. You said he was a pervert, and there's no question about that. However, I don't see that there was a major cover-up in the Shannan Gilbert case. Everything that I've seen as an investigator in all my experience, I don't see it as a homicide. We talked about the autopsy that was done by Dr. Michael Bodden, and based on that alone, I don't think that that's even close to being considered a homicide. And I also pointed out several things in previous shows. There were so many different people involved in that 911 call. If someone was going to kill a person, would they allow them to call 911 and stay on with 911 for an extended period of time? That right there is very, very a huge red flag for me. So I do believe that there's a lot of things that happen in this case that perhaps fall into a corruption subject. But with regard to Shannan Gilbert, why, Mr. Ray, why would the Suffolk County Police Department now, not going back to when Burke was the police commissioner, now with Rodney Harrison at the helm as the police commissioner, why would they exclude this case from a dozen other cases and label it a serial killer crime?
Well, let me ask you something, Detective. Did you watch and listen to the streaming of my symposium last Tuesday?
I did see some of it, not all of it, but I did see. I saw when you had the affiant that read from a statement, and I did see the part that you talked about with regard to the hotel statement regarding Asa Ellerup.
Well, then you missed the important part, which was we did an explication in detail of the answer to your question, where essentially the police case that she died of some tragic accident was annihilated by the evidence, not just by me and my rhetoric, but rather by the evidence.
Would you please expand on that then?
Sure. Well, I know you fellas are always, you're a homicide guy, I think, right? Former homicide guy. And, homicide detectives, to my mind, are the creme de la creme of the police department. They're the guys that really understand and know. They're the ones that are highly trained to solve crimes, and more so than anybody else, they have to rely upon, of course, evidence. What did Sherlock Holmes say? Evidence, always evidence. And so much so that the cops know, the homicide cops know, that you can't go forward with a case unless you have sufficient evidence to convict, because that guy will walk and that murderer will be on the street.
Right.
So you rely on evidence. And I ask you this question. Show me one scintilla of evidence that the police department has that proves that Shannan died of a tragic accident. They don't identify the accident. They have no evidence of any accident. They said it's their opinion that it was an accident. When did homicide people ever have an opinion without basing it on evidence? It's completely contrary to their entire existence. And that's nonetheless what they have done. Something is seriously wrong with that. I've been doing this business for 41 years. I'm in my 41st year, I've been involved in 33 homicide cases and many other criminal cases, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them, and I can't even count anymore. I've cross-examined police officers who I count as very brave people for the most part, and I've seen them, the courageous things that they've done, even when I'm banging away at them in murder cases on cross-examination. They're great people. How could they drop the ball on this one and say, we have no evidence, but we conclude this anyway?
But where was the evidence that they dropped? You didn't expand on that. You didn't. I mean, my opinion.
Actually, I did at great length.
Okay, but
why I held the symposium. It was a 4-hour presentation.
Okay, but maybe you'll be able to give us some points of why you think this was a homicide. But let me just say this. From the information on the 911 call, I don't have access to the case folder. However, they were able to interview at least 3 or 4 people that were present during that 911 call. And her behavior was obviously paranoid. You heard Michael Pack say, "You're freaking me out." That was the person that brought.
He's a convicted sex trafficker, and he knew she was on a 911 call. And you think he told the truth?
No. But the phone call was recorded. So he said to her, "Come on, let's go." You hear what's his name? Joseph Brewer say, it's time to go. So all of these things are going on. Now, I characterize what I heard on that 911 call as an extremely paranoid person, perhaps intoxicated by drugs or alcohol. I don't know, but maybe you could point out. You're saying it's a homicide. Prove it to me. Tell me what points that you talked about in the symposium that you say would lead us to believe that it's a homicide that was covered up.
Mr. Ray, hold that thought. Folks, I want you the symposium that Mr. Ray hosted the other night cost a lot of money. He has a GoFundMe up, www.gofundme.com/F/Lisk-Magdalene. So if you could contribute to that, I could go on, search that site and contribute to Mr. Ray's GoFundMe. He's seeking justice in this case. Okay, Mr. Ray. Go ahead.
It's called Magdalene Dismas Society. It's named after St. Mary Magdalene, who was a prostitute, and it's named after St. Dismas, the good thief on the cross. So the two heroes are a prostitute and a thief, and we're asking you to contribute to help those kind of people. So thank you. But as far as the evidence, we took clips from the 23-minute phone call that Shannan made, and we put them up and we explicated them against what had been put up by the police department when they put up their show. And I think you'll be very thoroughly convinced if you look at it as to the real evidence that does exist, that you're wrong about what you said. Maybe you said it in good faith, but you're wrong. You're buying into the police line. And
so can you point out? Can you point out something where you think I was wrong? Because I listened to.
I will. I'll be glad to point it out to you. First of all, our very first statements when she comes into the house, she's in Brewer's house, and we think that she had just come into the house when she makes that call, because Brewer, she's in the main room. If Brewer was there in the main room, she wouldn't have been saying someone is after me. He would have been there right there. So that's not the one she's talking about. She repeats it 6 times. Someone is after me. Later on, she said, they are trying to kill me. They, not someone, but they. She moves from someone who was chasing her to they, who if you listen to the enhanced voice tapes that we have, which the police department did not have and still do not have, you would hear the male voices in the background that don't belong there. You would even hear male voices saying things that other people, they weren't Brewer and they weren't Pack. But and there's so much more than what I'm saying, but listen to it carefully. Is this a girl who's paranoid? Do paranoid people always speak politely like she did to everybody in that tape? She was very polite to everybody. And if you assume that someone really was after her, everything she said made sense. If you assume, and it's an assumption without any evidence, that she wasn't being chased by anybody against all the evidence, then you think she's paranoid.
But don't you think that these people were thoroughly interviewed by the investigators in the police department?
Completely the opposite. They were not thoroughly investigated. Michael Pack, for example, a convicted human trafficker who spent time for a felony in California for sex trafficking. Michael Pack was interviewed once by the police department, and when he took a lie detector test, he fell asleep during the test, and that's all they did with him.
Inconclusive.
And then what he said is he claimed that he left from that site and went to Queens on Horace Harding Boulevard and went to a Dunkin' Donuts and met up with another driver who he was supposed to take money from, buy some kind of a green dot card, and send the money to the organization that was sponsoring this whole event. That man, the police said, well, we corroborated Michael Pack's testimony. And how did they corroborate it? They talked to Michael Pack, a inherent liar about many, many things. I took his testimony twice, and he lied about so many things, and I could catch him on it. But besides that, I interviewed the man that he was supposed to have met to buy the money, or to buy the green dot card to deposit the money. I found the guy. He was in Miami. I talked to him. The police never interviewed him. They did not interview people like they were supposed to do. Completely the opposite.
So you're going to tell me that
you guys know that when you have a bad guy that's doing something wrong and you're in it, you arrest the guy and you roll him up. They never did that with Pack. They let him go. They let Brewer go. Here they are trafficking interstate. That girl came from Jersey City, trafficking interstate prostitution, and they did not arrest either one of them.
Mr. Ray, you're saying that as of today, with Rodney Harrison as the police commissioner at the time when this whole case developed and moved forward to the arrest stage, these people have not been interviewed. Is that what you're saying? That's the statement you're making?
You got it.
Okay. I mean, I find that rather unusual. Based on,
Phil, I just want to put something up on the screen. I have something to ask Mr. Ray. This is Michael Boden's autopsy report.
Right.
Toxicologic analysis was able to be performed on skeletal muscles and contents of the cranial cavity. No drugs of abuse, including cocaine, were found. The death certificate was issued as cause of death undetermined, manner of death undetermined. Shannan's mother told me that her daughter had been in good health, no surgical procedures, no hospitalization, that she did use cocaine sometimes. It's my opinion, based on the circumstances of Shannan's death and on the materials that I have reviewed, that there's no evidence that she died of a natural disease, of a drug overdose, or of drowning. There is insufficient information to determine a definitive cause of death, but the autopsy findings are consistent with homicidal strangulation. I don't know how he came to that conclusion when he contradicts himself. He agrees with the medical examiner, but then he contradicts himself and calls it homicidal strangulation. I don't know how he came to that conclusion at all, based on agreeing with the Suffolk County medical examiner and then taking a complete left turn and saying it appears to be homicidal strangulation. Again, can you explain? Look, I'm not. This really should be asked of Boden. I don't know how he.
No, you could ask it of me because I did the autopsy with Boden.
Okay.
And I was there through the whole thing. And I was completely aware of his report before it was issued. And then I also held a press conference as he did as to his report. So I'm familiar with his report. And Michael Boden, read it carefully and you'll see that there's no consistency whatsoever. The overall circumstances of the body itself and where it was found and the way it was found, it was impossible to determine whether or not from the other circumstances that the death was homicidal. But because the hyoid bone was fractured in the neck, and we were able to see that and look at it.
It doesn't say that in the report that it's fractured. It says it's just dislodged and the larynx is missing.
Yeah, no, he actually said it was fractured. And if
Put it
you
up,
also
Bill.
read, he also said
It's up here. It is. It's up in the last paragraph, last sentence. However, the larynx was missing, and only the body of the hyoid bone was found. The two greater horns of the neck bone were missing. These structures, the larynx and the hyoid bone, are often fractured during homicidal manual strangulation. My examination of the recovered body of the hyoid bone, after it had been anthropologically defleshed, showed a roughness at the margins where the separated horns had been attached. That's what he concluded.
correct. And he also goes on to say, if you look at it, that the death is not consistent with natural causes.
And he says there's no evidence of natural drowning or of.
There's no evidence that she died of a natural disease, a drug overdose or drowning.
Yeah.
All right. And so.
But the next sentence there is insufficient information to determine a definitive cause of death.
Right.
Now that's where he's agreeing with the Suffolk County autopsy, the medical examiner.
No,
and
he's not.
That's what the original autopsy
sentence detective. He says, but the autopsy findings are consistent with homicide, strangulation.
But he's agreeing with the original autopsy report. The original autopsy report said it was
not definitive. It's definitive. Not definitive is not the same as not. It's not the same as we don't know. It's just not definitive. He's not there to determine something that he can't determine. He can only determine with what he has. But it's not it's not definitive, but it's consistent with homicidal.
There's one other thing that has to be
not the only evidence in this case. That's just one piece of evidence.
Okay, but in his report, he states that not all the bones were recovered. So the skeletal remains were there. The body had been there for about 20 months, went through 6 or 7
don't know
seasons.
if they were there. It was there for 20 months. The police flew a helicopter over on May 3rd. She disappeared on May 1st. They flew it over on May 3rd. They didn't see anything. They then had a Black Hawk FBI helicopter with infrared devices in it to fly over that marsh in 2011, and they didn't see her. So we don't even know how long she was there. Just like we don't even know how many other bodies were there.
You know better than I haven't been to the location. There's very, very high brush there. So for a body to be, obscured from the sky, I don't think would be much of a stretch.
With infrared devices to find them, I disagree.
Yeah, but infrared is only going to pick up heat. If the body's in the marsh for a period of time, there's not going to be any heat. The victim will lose the body temperature in hours.
No, it won't, because what will happen is that maybe the body temperature as it was, but those bones were exposed. I saw them. The top part of the bones were white from the sun. The bottom part were green from laying in the marsh.
Okay.
So that's not accurate. But
wait a second. How could you say that it's not going to be accurate? That it's not going to a human body is 98.6 degrees, and if it's in the water within an hour or two, it's going to drop and in the cold air, and it probably went up and down the body temperature along with decomposition over the period of 20 months. So, I mean, listen. The point I was trying to make was not all of the remains were recovered. Obviously, some of the clothing was scattered. There was a lot of different things, and
clothing wasn't scattered at all. That's not accurate. What happened is her jeans were found with her pocketbook, her cell phone, a perfume bottle cap, and some money in her wallet. They were found in a circle right behind Dr. Peter Hackett's house, about a quarter to a third of a mile away from the body. Nothing else was scattered. There were just jeans that were left there. So that's not accurate either. You got to know the facts. If you want to talk on these things, you got to know the facts.
Are you saying that the clothing wasn't found with the body?
The only clothing found with the body, she was wearing a white blouse, as Barbara Brennan testified. She saw her very clearly in the daylight and before Shannan disappeared. And Gus Coletti identified her as having a white blouse on as well. And the
jeans were found some other location from where the body was found.
The jeans were found in a different location.
Yes, so Mr. Ray, based on Michael Bodden's report, he wrote, she was still wearing deteriorating fragments of clothing, a white or tan shirt, black brassiere, thong panties, and blue denim jeans. That's in Bodden's report.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
The blue
denim. If he's incorrect here, but he could be incorrect in other parts of his report. That's a favorite line of attorneys. Because if this is incorrect, he made lots of mistakes then. Did you read this? Hold on, Mr. Ray. Did you read this for accuracy? You said you worked on it with him.
I did. I didn't write the document.
It's only 3 pages long. If there's mistakes in a 3-page paper by a former New York City medical examiner, that I have questions about the accuracy of this entire report.
Okay, so you say because he mentions the blue denim jeans, which were found elsewhere, his entire report is wrong, right?
Well, yeah. Because you worked on it with him and you read it and you said you worked on it with him. So now you're saying we're wrong about reporting the clothing, and it's right in this report. And you said you worked on it with him.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't write the report.
All right. We, as you could see, we disagreed a lot, and I think we showed him that report was a mess. It was an absolute mess. And if I would go on the stand with a report like that as a homicide sergeant, John Ray, if he was the attorney, he would rip me to shreds. And this report was done by a chief medical examiner of New York City, he's like 90 years old now. But there was so many mistakes in that report, and John Ray set himself up. He said he worked on the report with him. Then why is it all wrong then? And he's yelling he's saying to us, you guys don't know the facts. We're reading your report. You worked on it with this medical examiner. You can't have it both ways, Mike.
No, Billy, you're right. Phil. In fact, if you went another couple of minutes, you'd hear all the entire explosion. Phil was being very careful and very particular, and Mr. Ray really can't answer. And then after you talked to him and Phil talked to him, I asked him one question, and I said, okay, you claim that Shannan Gilbert was murdered. Which one of the people at the party do you suspect killed her? And he didn't answer that question either. So I don't know what to make of it. It's not as professional as you like to see coming from an attorney who has been working on that case for practically a dozen years, and who used this actual Michael Bodden, former chief medical examiner's report as the basis for going after and attacking Suffolk County. And I think it's faulty. If you're going to attack somebody, you better have your report or your information better be exact.
Well, Mike, on the screen, this is where they don't understand law enforcement or what it's like to testify in court. J. Mack, John didn't write the report, but he should have certified it as correct. If he's using that report as his Bible to prove certain things, and he said he worked on it, he just set himself up. That whole damn report should be thrown out.
Exactly.
You made a mistake. Didn't you read this? It's only 3 pages long. You got to be kidding me. Me as a homicide sergeant, if I certified that report as correct and went on a stand with it and then tried to pull back, oh, I didn't write it. What, are you kidding me? You certified it as correct. You're a damn attorney. And then you're going to try to pull back from it? Please, don't even try that.
When you sign something and you say this is your report and it's true and accurate, if it turns out that you weren't even in the ballpark on certain things, and there was some material mistakes that were made that are germane to the actual issue at large. And the issue is, was there any objective evidence of criminal strangulation or homicide? And the answer was no. That's the inescapable fact about the case. The idea about the Black Hawk helicopter flying around, that was off-putting because, as Phil said, your body decomposes very quickly. Your body temperature drops very quickly. If you fly over an area where there's a dead body and they've been dead for more than a day, you're probably not going to get a heat signature. And you probably might not see it even with binoculars, depending on the grass growth and everything else. So it's kind of sad what has happened with the Shannan Gilbert case, because it has become a cause celeb. And I think that case is now waning. And I think that's very difficult for Mr. Ray at this point.
100%. And you know something? I just want to make this clear to the crowd. I like Mr. Ray. I really do.
He's a good guy.
I think his heart is in the right place. But you know something? You want to play in the major leagues, then don't throw mud at us, because we're questioning you as you would question us if we were on the stand. And on the screen, yes, John should have certified the report. He said he worked on it with the chief medical examiner of New York City. Yes. So then do you certify it as correct? Oh, I didn't write it. All of a sudden he started doing a tap dance. You can't have it both ways. You worked on it with him, then this should all be correct. And because I'm referring to it, you said, oh, that's not true. Well, then it's in the report and you worked on it with him. So how is it not true? You certified it as correct, didn't you? But then he did a tap dance. He went backwards. Oh, I didn't write it. So, guys, I'm just saying it got a little bombastic, and that's okay. Policing is a confrontational profession, and so is being an attorney. We've been on the air for an hour and 49 minutes. I think it was a great show. I think What we wanted, our whole dissertation for this show tonight was this here. These are all the attorneys that are involved in the Gilgo Beach. Who do they represent? Clearly, Michael Brown represents Rex Heuermann. District Attorney Ray Tierney represents the people, state of New York, Suffolk County, Long Island. Robert Macedonio represents Asa Ellerup, the wife of Rex Heuermann. John Ray represents the family of Shannan Gilbert, potentially more victims who he says he represents. Vess Mitev, former associate of John Ray, he represents Victoria Heuermann. And Gloria Allred, attorney for family of Jessica Taylor, and apparently other families that are victims of this case. At this point, I just want to say that we always mention on this show that this is about the victims. Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Bartolome, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. And very, very recently, we added 2 more to this, Jessica Taylor and Sandra Costilla. And we pray for their souls, and we pray for their families that they have some type of justice in this case. I'm not going to use the word closure, but they have some kind of justice. Mike, we've been on a marathon here, so your final words.
Final words. Okay, for everybody to know that in these cases, usually you have, the district attorney know the district attorney, and the defense attorney. But in this case, where so much is at stake and there's so much money that may be in play, that you will see sharks that are actually attorneys surfacing with the dorsal fin popping out of the water because everybody wants to get paid. And so it's about the money. And if somebody tells you it's not about the money, you wave your finger at them and say it's about the money. So now you have a little introduction as to who all the sharks are swimming around off the coast of Suffolk County.
Absolutely. Folks, I want to thank everyone for listening to us. And I know there's a lot of fans out there for Attorney John Ray. And I tell you the truth, I'm a fan of John Ray too. I really do like the guy, but you know something? When something isn't right, I question it, and that's my job. That was my job as a homicide sergeant for the NYPD, a patrol sergeant, an anti-crime sergeant. That's what I do. I didn't come here. I wasn't, airlifted here from Oz. And so we all come with experience, and we didn't fall off. My favorite expression, neither Mike or I fell off a turnip truck, right? So we understand what time it is. So anyway, with all of that said, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Bill Cannon and Professor Mike Geary. Have a great night, and God bless.
Good
night. One episode just ain't enough.